Direct Connection is made by MPT to serve all of our diverse communities and is made possible by the generous support of our members. Thank you. Live from Maryland Public Television, this is Direct Connection with Jeff Salkin.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for tuning in for Direct Connection. 24 homicides in 13 days. That is how the month of July has started in the city of Baltimore. In the poorest neighborhoods, these are desperate and dangerous times. What is the way forward? How can the drug trade be slowed? And how can the coming trial in the Freddie Gray case not lead to more unrest? Our guest tonight knows the city as well as anyone. He is former mayor and former prosecutor Kurt Schmoke, now the president of the University of Baltimore. Mr. Schmoke, nice to see you. Thanks for coming in.
Good to see you too, Jeff. Thank you very much for having me.
Let's start with your broad thinking on what's happened in the city over the past 3 months.
Yeah, you know, it's really quite a shame. Things were moving in the right direction. I think that if you listen to the mayor talk before April, she was laying out a very strong case for the progress that the city was making. Underlying it, though, and she tried to bring this out during the session of the legislature. You recall that she went down to the legislature in order to try to make some changes in the Police Officers' Bill of Rights because she detected some real problem and tension on the street between police and the community. And of course, after Ferguson, after what happened in New York, when you had the Freddie Gray incident, that just brought out all those underlying tensions to the fore here in Baltimore. So, of course, we not only had the riots, but then what happened afterwards, after the 6 police officers got charged, there clearly was a slowdown in police activity, and a few opportunists took advantage of that, and that's what we've been living with over the past few weeks.
So the mayor has just fired the police commissioner,
Yeah.
has an acting commissioner at the moment. You've been in the job. Not too many people can say that. What can you do? What
Sure.
are the limitations? What would you do?
Well, it gets to be tough when the commissioner starts to lose the confidence of the troops. Even if he's got the greatest vision, he's got the most wonderful plan, if he's lost the confidence of the troops and becomes the subject of debate, then he's a distraction. And so asking him to step aside, having someone with the experience of Davis, I think is important at this time, and people seem to be rallying around it. This idea of pulling together all the law enforcement agencies now to work together is really a step forward, because it's a small number of people that create the havoc in the community. And if you can share ideas, federal agencies, state agencies, the local police agencies, I think you're going to start to see the homicide numbers coming down. Because as you know, I'm in a position that, you know, when I was mayor, we had that unbelievable time where crack cocaine came into the city fairly late, and so we had several years of 300 homicides, and it didn't start to go down until we brought in a combined strategy, which, you know, later on was not only community policing, but it was making some changes in the neighborhoods, and the numbers started to come down.
At that time, there were a lot more people living in the city, maybe 150,000 more than we have today. I don't know the numbers exactly, but the pace of violence over the last 6 or 8 weeks may be on a per capita basis as bad as it's ever been. At least that's how it feels.
It's pretty dramatic. Well, and that's a good point, though, the how it feels. You know, the numbers have to come down, and the whole perception of safety has to go up. I mean, one of the things that helped us, not only was there a new police strategy, but remember, we tore down the public high-rises that had become real warehouses of poverty and magnets of crime, and created new neighborhoods. That had a huge impact on on the whole safety problem. So right now, I think the mayor's got, well, and the whole city is dealing with the spike and also the perception that it's unsafe. You got to deal with that perception, and I think that's why she brought this combined new task force together. And over the next few days, hopefully we'll start to see things go down.
You know, around the time the Murphy homes were coming down,
right.
There was a big investment in the Town Winchester
That's
area,
right.
which is a really interesting place. I frankly hadn't been there for maybe 20 years.
Yeah.
Used to cover crime, but was there a lot, and wasn't there for a while, and went back. And the thing that strikes you is the number of boarded up houses,
right?
Because people have left,
right? But the real complication in Town Winchester is that you can walk down one street and see all these boarded up houses. You go to another street where the Enterprise Foundation, the city and state together had invested, and you see these new houses that are there, and also in some of the commercial areas, in Pennsylvania Avenue, renovated market. So you get this sense of, wait a minute, the government put all this money, and it was about $130 million that went into the investment to improve Town Winchester. And you say, well, what happened? Well, you do see some signs of progress there, but an awful lot of people actually moved out. Their lives were improved. They got better education, new opportunities, and many of them left the community. So unfortunately, you still have this real hard core of poverty right there, and that's the tough thing that has to be addressed, over the next couple of months.
You look at the city of Baltimore, and there's some areas around the water that are just doing spectacularly well. I mean, your predecessors couldn't have imagined what some of those places in Canton and Fells Point would look like.
Well, when we applied for and obtained that empowerment zone designation from the Clinton administration, those are the areas that we made the investment. I know some of my good friends hate for me to say it, but I've always viewed Baltimore as somewhat of a tale of two cities. That on one hand, we have some of the best in urban America when you walk around either side of the harbor and many other areas. And then we have some of the worst in America because we just have large concentrations of poverty. And as you know, we've had a heroin problem. Didn't start just recently, but it is something that we have dealt with really since World War II, and the homicide problem also that comes along with that.
I was about to go there because you were, of course, one of the early voices talking about decriminalization and the futility in some ways of the war on drugs. The state has taken some small steps in terms of marijuana at this point. Are we on the right track there in your view?
I really do think we're moving in the right direction. I was so pleased to see that one of the first initiatives of the Hogan administration was the appointment of this heroin study commission that Lieutenant Governor Rutherford is heading, and then the mayor's task force on heroin. And both of them seem to be coming to the point that basically says, we've got to treat this more as a public health problem. We can't arrest our way. We can't convict our way out of this problem. We've got to have much more treatment. And they're also seeing that the heroin problem is not just a localized urban problem. It's all over the state, all over the country. So the argument that I was trying to make, maybe I wasn't as artful as I should be, but that there needs to be a drug war, but it ought to be primarily a public health war rather than a criminal justice war. And that's the way that we will be successful. And I think that the state slowly but surely is moving in that direction.
Let's take some phone calls. This is Ronnie in Baltimore City. Ronnie, thanks for the call. Go ahead.
Yes, how you doing, Captain? I voted for you when you ran for ban. I voted for you when you ran for city attorney. But I feel like Freddie Gray's rights was taken away because he was killed in the well, I call the Baltimore City Police because I've been arrested by him, but I've never been hurt.
Yeah.
But I feel his rights was taken away, and I was wondering if I said, well, man, the former state's attorney, he's not a traitor, but he could come over and represent,
Roddy, thank you very much.
Here's the deal, Ronnie. I think that, and it was something that I wrote about and you commented on earlier, Jeff. I wish that the civil lawsuit in the Freddie Gray case could go first. That is, I think that the Gray family is going to win that very easily because the police have already said it was negligence in the way in which they put Freddie Gray in the van and drove him around. So in the standard of just a lawsuit for damages, I think that the family would win.
It's a slam dunk. I mean, he went in, there's pictures of him going into the van, and there's the medical examiner saying a horrendous injury happened in the van.
That's right. And they know that they should have strapped him in, and they didn't. So a lawsuit on negligence, I think that they're going to win. Now, I believe, having been a prosecutor and prosecuted police officers on a couple of occasions, it is very difficult to win criminal cases against police officers. First, you get a cross-section of the community, and we generally as citizens are inclined to give officers the benefit of doubt about their judgment in arrest situations and things of that nature. It's one thing to say it's negligence, quite another to say that it's manslaughter, which is a higher criminal standard, and you have to prove that beyond a reasonable doubt. So I am not in any way second guessing the state's attorney in her charges because I don't know all the information she has, and she may have a ton of more evidence on it. What I do know from my own experience, though, is that it is extremely difficult to convict police officers when they say that they were exercising what they thought was appropriate judgment for that particular situation, and when you have a jury that's going to be clearly a cross-section of the community with different experiences dealing with police.
Cross-section of which community is going to be the question, because in terms of any defense motion to have a change of venue, a Baltimore City resident sitting on that jury is going to know that acquittals could lead to more violence, more rioting. Does that put the jury under the gun, so to speak?
Well, that's why you have that preliminary questioning that the judges always do when you have a pool of potential jurors and you're asking them very tough questions to see whether they can be qualified and whether they would be impartial and hear the case. And that's why I don't think a judge will make a decision on change of venue until that questioning occurs. So I don't think you'll see a motion to grant the change of venue granted anytime soon.
Let's. I have one political question, and then we need to talk University of Baltimore.
Okay.
The political question is that I heard that a former mayor of Baltimore was running to get the old job back.
Yeah.
Not you, right?
That's for sure. They didn't talk to my wife. She'd say no. But
All right. So it's Sheila Dixon, obviously.
Yeah. And what's going to be interesting? I mean, it'll be a very competitive mayor's race. To me, the real wild card in all this is the fact that the election is going to be in April. This is the first time we've had a mayor's primary election in the same year as the presidential primary race. And see, normally the mayor's race,
terrible.
That's right. It's in an off year. You get a fairly low turnout. But this time you're going to have a very competitive presidential primary with one of Maryland's favorite sons in the mix, and he's going to try to generate a lot of votes. So you've got a big question mark about this particular election, not only the candidates that will be involved, but actually the voter turnout, which could be very surprising and unpredictable.
Let's take a phone call, then we'll do the University of Baltimore. This is Brady in Frederick County. Brady, thank you for the call. Go ahead.
Hey.
Hi.
Hey, how you guys doing today?
Good. What's your question?
I'm wondering if the citizens of Baltimore could have a more positive attitude towards the police enforcement.
All right. Thanks very much.
It really varies around the city, and that's why I say the jury in this case is going to be a cross-section. You'll have people from some parts of the city who interact with the police on a daily basis and are very positive. that they feel that the police are there to serve, that are positive, that are helping in the community. Then you have some parts of the city that feel that the police are almost like an invading force, and they have negative feelings about it. So I think overall, the questioner, if he had listened to people over the last few weeks, when they saw a decrease in police arrests, all of a sudden you hear more people saying, you know, we really like to have the police around. They are really helpful. They do good things for our community. So generally, I think that folks have a positive feeling, and that will just have to be communicated better. But police also have to do a good job on training to interact, particularly with young people. Young people in our community, that's where the biggest problem is.
Okay, so when you left public life in Baltimore, you became the dean of the Howard University Law School, served in other executive capacities, provost there, and you've been back in Baltimore for the last year as the president of the University of Baltimore. What's the agenda there?
Outstanding university. It is a university that started in 1925 as a combination of a night law school and a night business school. So it's always had kind of a career orientation, with the slogan of the university being knowledge that works. And so what we are doing is really preparing young people and young adults for the challenges of the current and future economy. So we've got a lot of programs in cyber and a lot of digital things, but also in our basic arts and sciences program, we are very strong. Great business school, and we're among the leaders in accounting, in fact. So, you know, we're right in the heart of the city, and as our community likes to say, we're not only the University of Baltimore, we're the University for Baltimore, and we look forward to helping to solve some tough problems in the city.
Next time you're here, hopefully there's nothing else to talk about.
Great.
And we'll focus more on the university.
Super. Appreciate
Former
it.
Mayor Kurt Schmoke, thanks for coming by.
Thank you, Jeff.
And we're back with our Your Health segment right after this.
Tonight on MPT.
Tune in next time to find out which Sin City treasures hit the jackpot in vintage Las Vegas.
Holy cow! Really?
I guess I won't give it to my 5-year-old then.
Wow. Is that right? You're kidding. That's right. Oh, that's wonderful.
Can you guess what values went up, down, or stayed the same? Find out next time on Antiques Roadshow.
Tonight at 8 on MPT. Next time on Father Brown. A colonel is murdered at a military base.
At least we know what time he died.
Father Brown thinks the regiment is hiding a secret.
The key to the murder lies in Dunkirk.
But his help gets him into familiar trouble.
Someone's tried to murder you. I really need you to get off the base.
Can he solve the case?
I tried to be inconspicuous.
I noticed.
Father Brown. Tonight at 10 on MPT.
Tonight on MPT2.
On Masterpiece.
He's done it now. Could have had his pick. Any number of eligible girls from rising families, instead of which he marries his serving wench.
Doors which were open will be slammed in his face.
How long till we strike copper? Will one more blast get us through?
One more blast is all we can afford. Am I prepared to trust him with more of my capital?
You last till the week before Christmas.
Ross will be sorry you ever went me.
Poldark on Masterpiece.
Tonight at 8 on MPT2.
Joining us for this week's Your Health segment is Dr. Ash Hassan, Associate Professor of Orthopedics at the University of Maryland School of Medicine and Orthopedic Surgeon at the University of Maryland Medical Center and the University of Maryland Rehabilitation and Orthopedic Institute. Doctor, thank you for being with us. You specialize in elbows. I've been watching a lot of sports on TV. Wimbledon, there was a golf tournament, a lot of baseball, a lot of things that put strain on elbows. But it's not just athletes who have problems.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so there's a wide spectrum of injuries that can affect the elbow. And as you alluded to, in fact, the most common thing we see, very common, is injuries, overuse injuries to the elbow. Classic tennis elbow, golfer's elbow. But, we see that not just in athletes, not just in tennis players, not just in pitchers, but in people, for example, who are plumbers, carpenters, butchers, anybody who really does an activity that puts a significant repetitive force on the forearm muscles can get an injury to the elbow, very commonly.
What's the weak link in terms of the structure of the elbow?
Well, so it's typically, so what happens is the muscles on the top of the arm are the ones that raise your wrist and involved in gripping activities. And so that where that muscle attaches to the elbow bone on the outside, one of the tendons there can get these micro tears, micro trauma, which then causes pain and limitation of function.
Do you feel it? Where do you feel that?
Right, so typically people will come in and they'll say, you know, my elbow hurts on the outside. They'll complain of the pain going down into the top of their forearm. Typically doesn't go into the hands and fingers. And if it is from a tendon problem or a muscle problem, that is, then it's typically not going to have numbness and tingling specifically in the hands and fingers. So it's outside elbow pain down to the top of the forearm. And if it's the tendons on the inside, it's sort of the opposite.
What's the escalation of treatment or therapies that you advise?
Well, so the best treatment is in some ways the hardest treatment because it's to stop what's aggravating it, which is not always easy, right? You say you got to stop doing what you love to do, right? And people don't necessarily want to do that. So rest is a big component of it. Then we can do simple things such as anti-inflammatory medication. We can do some splinting, bracing, a tennis elbow strap, which is basically a strap that goes on the forearm about here, not too tight, slightly snug. Idea being that it takes the force off the injured tendon and allows that tendon to heal. Injections can work, so cortisone injections have a role, maybe not right away, but they have a role. And then therapy can be very helpful to stretch the muscles and tendons and also strengthen some of the other muscles around the injured one, to unload it.
How often do you do surgery for something like this?
Not commonly. So for the most part, this can be very successfully treated non-operatively with the measures we just talked about. I would say out of all the patients I see with tennis elbow, less than 10%, maybe less than 5% go on to surgery.
When we hear about baseball pitchers commonly, or catchers in the Orioles case,
right, sure,
having Tommy John surgery, is that limited to professional athletes? Do real people get that?
Well, I mean, I think it can happen to any individual who's involved in high-level throwing sports. So certainly even high school kids, older high school kids, collegiate kids can get it. And it's really interesting because the ligament that the Tommy John surgery replaces is a ligament on the inside of the elbow. And if you look at every single pitch a pitcher throws, the force on that ligament actually exceeds the strength of the ligament. So theoretically, every single pitch that ligament should tear, right? But it doesn't because there's the muscles around it help support it and help unload it. But over time, in somebody who's been pitching for years, that ligament can get stretched out, it can get thinned out and get tears, and sometimes progress to the point where you do a surgical reconstruction.
You know, I've heard speculation that high school athletes, the high school pitcher, specializes too early, and that they do nothing but pitch. Where in the old days they might have played some different sports, played a little basketball, mixed it up a little bit, and that's leading to more elbow problems. Any truth to that?
Yeah, I think there probably is some truth to that. I mean, I think that certainly from when I was in high school, back then there wasn't this year-round playing like you alluded to, and I think the travel teams and constantly throwing. But at the same time, I think coaches nowadays and trainers are very cognizant of the demands on the elbow, and there are guidelines on how many pitches a athlete should be throwing based on their age, what type of pitches they should be throwing. So I think that information is out there and disseminated, and I think if those guidelines are followed, that decreases the risk of injury.
How does someone know, in just a few seconds,
sure,
whether they should see the neighborhood orthopedist or they need an elbow specialist?
Well, I think it depends on the duration of the symptoms, the severity of the symptoms. If you just start having some initial pain, for a day or two, or a short period of time, I think it's certainly reasonable to see a local orthopedist. I think if you start talking about doing a ligament reconstruction, that's when you probably want to see a specialist.
Dr. Ash Hassan of the University of Maryland. Doctor, thanks for coming by.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Do appreciate it. Thursday at this time on Your Money and Business, legal advice helping to make sure your golden years are financially secure. Remember to join us Friday as well for State Circle and the latest on Maryland politics. We'll be looking at the Common Core curriculum. Now, for all of us here at MPT, I'm Jeff Salkin. Thanks for watching and have a good night.
Your health segments are a co-production of Maryland Public Television and the University of Maryland Medical System.
This program was made by MPT to serve all of our diverse communities.